Have your Bibles, turn with me to 2 Kings chapter 6. 2 Kings chapter 6. This is an exciting time, an exciting chapter. And I promise, the lady said we'd keep the pond seat hot, so they'll warm it, huh? Good. 2 Kings chapter 6, great place to look at. Wonderful story here. We see here that Elisha, the first part of Elisha followed which great prophet? Who was his buddy? Elijah, that's right. And after Elijah, you remember when Elijah went up in the sky and he was watching him go up? It must have been an amazing sight. It's just like the disciples watching Jesus. And Elisha was just dumbfounded. He said, Master, bless me! And he throws out what, remember? Yeah, his tunic, his coat, and it fell down. That was his blessing. And so he continued on the same kind of exciting ministry that Elijah had. It was a thrilling story. Again and again, we see these encounters that Elisha has with the floating axe head and all kinds of wonderful things. Remember the man from Damascus? His name was Naaman, and he had a problem with leprosy. That's right. Well, this is a story about Elisha, isn't it? Actually, it probably happened after this time. And so here we see in Elisha, his experience in chapter 6, the king of Syria. Now, this is not next door. Well, sort of, but not really. It would take probably a week for the Syrian army to come down to Samaria. And it's amazing. Samaria is right by Dothan, and this is where Elisha is. And you remember what was happening? What was going on? It's just an exciting story. We see it here in Elisha 6, chapter 6, verse 8. Once, when the king of Syria was at war with Israel, he took counsel with his officers, and he said, at such and such a place shall be my camp. But the man of God sent word to the king of Israel, take care not to pass there. This happened over and over again, didn't it? Remember? And finally, the king of Syria said to his officers, he said, who is it that's a traitor? And they said, it's not us. It's not us. Elijah is telling you what is. He knows what happens in your bedroom. Wow. That's pretty private, isn't it? And so he said, where's he at? Well, he's in Dothan. Well, go and get him. Now, it kind of sounds like, well, they just packed it one night and they went through the next day, but this was a major campaign. He took all his horses and chariots from Syria, the country of Syria, the neighboring country. It took them a week, at least a week, to get to Dothan. The next morning, after they got there, here in verse 15 of 2 Kings chapter 6, when an attendant of the man of God rose early in the morning and went out, an army with horses and chariots was all around the city. His servant said, alas, master, what shall we do? You can imagine the servant, he must have been in tears, wasn't he? He was scared. He thought he was going to lose his life. And Elisha replied, do not be afraid, for those are more with us than they are with them, more on our side than on their side. Isn't that great news? Wow. You want to be on the winning team? You know, we wish this baseball team up in Dallas had won, but sometimes on this old ball of mud, we're on the losing team. The Rangers just couldn't quite make it, could they? You know, we were all hoping they could, and they didn't do it. But that's just the way it is, isn't it? But with God, you're always on the winning team. You're always on the winning team. Aren't you? Isn't that neat? Here we are on an old ball of mud. All kinds of stuff happens. But as you see, I know. I've read the last of the book. I know what's going to happen. It's a good thing, isn't it? We're on God's side. We're on the winning team. It's all going to work out. And sometimes you think, well, it's like we're fixed in place and we can't see around the mountain. God is on top of the mountain. He sees all the way around. He knows it's going to be all right. His business is turning Satan's curses into blessings. Did you know that in life? He does that time and time. It's happened in my life, in your life. Someone said, a very wise person years ago, that we have nothing to fear for the future except as we forget how God has led us in the past. Ellen White was a very wise person, wasn't she? to receive that from God. You have nothing to fear for the future, except as you forget how God has led you in the past. Isn't that good news? That's thrilling. So here, you know the rest of the story. It's an exciting one. Elijah prayed, "Oh Lord, please open his eyes that he may see." So the Lord opened the eyes of the servant, and he saw, and the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elijah. God's army was much bigger and much more powerful than the Syrian army. There was nothing to be afraid of. And Elijah just simply prayed. There was no battle. He simply prayed, "Lord, make them blind." And the whole army was blind. And he went down and he said, the person you're after is not really here. You need to follow me. So they went down the road a ways, and it was about 20 miles. Took a day to get to Samaria, and they walked into Samaria. They closed the gate behind them. The whole army of Syria, just amazing, wasn't it? They were all captured and then released. Wow, what a thrilling experience. Well, remember always, won't you, that those on our side were on the winning team, are more than on theirs. I want to share a few things that have happened this year, right here in Houston. Some thrilling things. I'll start with Houston. We'll go to Philippines and Africa, and then back to Houston again. Just some exciting, thrilling things to show and demonstrate how we're on the winning team with God. Here we are, Houston for Christ. This is Dan Jackson, our new division president, North American Division. He is so excited about evangelism. He came to Houston for Christ. We had 130 evangelistic meetings all at the same time in Houston, Texas. First time it's ever happened in the North American Division. Actually, people got so excited about what happened in Houston last February. In 2 years, Elder Wilson wants to do the same thing in New York City. They want to do 200 meetings there. Isn't that thrilling? That started here in Houston. I had a friend of mine who came to Houston, Bill McClendon. He preached in one of the sites here. He's the ministerial director up in the Washington Conference. They just finished 85 meetings there because he got inspired about what happened in Houston and said we can also do that up there in Washington Conference. Well, this is one of our pastors. This is Dan Jackson, his wife, Donna. We'll see a picture here. Him and Carl Johnson from Seminars Unlimited. He works for the North American Division. His office is up by Keene. It's up by Keene, just south of Fort Worth. Seminars Unlimited. He put a lot of the advertising packages together. This is a friend of mine. Do any of you know him? You know him? Nephilim Menez? Yeah, Menez. He is the new union president, just elected a few months ago. There in the Manila area. Is it South Philippine Union? North Philippine Union. North Philippine Union. Nephilim Menez and Kathy and I and his wife have been friends for, what's her name? Shirley. Have been friends for a long time. Actually, we were just in Scotland with a project like this, and he's working on his doctorate at the university there in Aberdeen. And this man has a wonderful story. One day, we were driving in Manila together, and we saw some children on the street. Street children. Homeless. Street children on the street. And my heart just breaks. We're going to be there in a couple of weeks. We're organizing another meeting in Manila for next year. I'll tell you about that in a minute. But we're there in Manila, driving on the street, and I saw these kids begging for food. And Natalie says, I used to be one of those. Did you know that? He was a homeless street kid. Really? He was a homeless street kid in Manila. And somebody saw in him some potential, and they sent him to school. Then he went on to the university. He went to our school, and he became a Seventh-day Adventist, and now he's a union president there. Isn't that thrilling? Yeah. How God can take a curse. I'm sure he wondered many times, why me, Lord? Why am I here on the street in Manila? Why am I here? You ever feel sorry for yourself? God turned that curse, Satan's curse, into a blessing, and now he's our union president there. Exciting, isn't it? How God can take a very bad situation and turn it into a wonderful blessing for all of God's church there. This is one of my friends, Steve. He's over in Arkansas, Louisiana, the president there. We're in Manila. We had Academy kids preaching. These Academy kids just had a thrill of their life as they preached. these girls, just amazing. This young lady here, she was in, her parents are from the Philippines. She goes to Ozark Academy, and what's her name? Honey. I should have Kathy, my honey, tell this. This is so exciting. She came and she preached a series of meetings. Her heart and her life was changed. She told Kathy when we were at Ozark a couple of weeks later up at the academy up in Arkansas, she said, I used to sit in a Bible class and I was so bored. And I had read some books on evolution, and I decided that all this stuff was garbage. And she said, I'll just count my days when I graduate from the academy. I'm out of here, she said. And then I heard about the trip to the Philippines. And she said, I thought I'd just go there and do some shopping. Have a good time in Manila. Well, she got there and she found out that she was in her church each night, preaching a full series of evangelistic meetings for 2 weeks every night. And it changed her life. Changed her life. She found Jesus in the Philippines. Isn't that exciting? This young lady, Ledesma. Her father is a pastor in Arkansas. She went to Albuquerque to our academy there, then over to Ozark, and she preached a full series of meetings at the Central Church. We were in just south Batangas. Have you been to Batangas? We were in the Central Church in Batangas. And Lipa City, by the academy there. Yeah, we were in the Central Church there, and the last night, Kathy and I were in the audience, and Melissa was preaching, and she had a call, and all these people started coming forward, and we couldn't believe it. That she had 25 decisions for baptism, and there were two doctors, a husband and wife, there in Lipa City. They came up to Kathy and I, they were talking to us later, and they said, when you said a 17-year-old girl was going to come to our church and preach a series of evangelistic meetings, we thought, it ain't going to work. You ever think of that? Huh? Anybody think? It's not going to work here. They knew it wouldn't work because the year before, they brought a professional pastor evangelist from America to Lipa City. They paid all of his expenses. He preached a full evangelistic series, and nobody was baptized. And here, a young lady, 17, you know what the difference was? She prayed, and she prayed every day. She spent hours in prayer that God would somehow help her as she made her calls, that people would hear Jesus and they would make a decision for Him. 25 decisions for baptism. Isn't that thrilling? A 17, anybody 17 here? Any 17? Yeah, there's one. Any 16? 15? Anybody 11 years old? Yes. We were just in Africa. I'll tell you about a young lady, 11 years old. By the way, this is one of our students from Albuquerque, and he was baptized in Lipa City when we had the large baptism. Let's first go to Dominica. Now, I think we have some people from Dominica. Yes. Our pastor here is from Dominica. These ladies are pastors' wives. They're married to pastors. Their husbands are pastors. Okay? Pastors' wives don't preach, right? Wrong. Not these ladies. They had never preached before. And they decided that they would go to Dominica. We had 23 of them preaching evangelistic meetings in July in Dominica. It was near San Domingo, down by Boca Chica. Yeah, the Boca Chica area. And these ladies came and they preached. They were so excited. We had a good mix there. This is the group. Aren't they neat? Amen. Pastors' wives preaching. Worship that we had each morning. we asked them when they first heard about preaching, if they were scared. And they said, well, show us how scared you were about preaching. So they would show us. She's scared. Anybody here, you ever feel scared when it comes to preaching? Yeah, would you be scared? Kathy, my wife, she's never preached before until she went 5 years ago to Kenya to preach. The Lord blessed her with almost 200 baptisms. She had 5,000 people come out and changed her life. Changed her life. She said it was the best experience of her life. We were at a camp meeting in Arizona after we got back, and I said, Kathy, why don't you share with the people what happened in Kenya when you preached your first meeting? So she stood up and she shared, and she said, this is the best experience of my life. And I said, Kathy, what about me? So now she's trained, see? She says it's a third best experience. First her first meeting, then her kids, and then actually I think it was the other way around. I think this was the best experience of her life. A thrilling experience. When you make a call every night and you see people come forward to accept Jesus, it touches your own heart. It really does, in a thrilling way. We have prayer together. Donna Jackson, she's our division president's wife. She came and preached her first evangelistic meetings there. And this is the president's wife of Texaco Conference, Rita Stevens, one of our pastor's wives preaching.
We know that if we can find the answer to the first question.
Now the next thing I want to show you is one of the pastor's wives who talks about her call. This is her call.
I had the queen mother of all appeals last night. I listened to every piece of advice. My appeal must have been about 20 minutes long. I got down off the platform. I was pointing at people. I even told them, about what they need to be doing and everything. I did the dollar thing. I did the dollar thing that Rita mentioned, except I didn't have a dollar. I had $5. And I was looking for my wallet and I thought, but I did. And still, even with the $5, who wants this $5? People didn't even raise their hand for that. They just stood there. And finally, I pleaded, and I had tears, and I had 5 people come forward. Little did I know that 2 of those people were actually going to be baptized that night. So it was actually only 3 people. But that's okay, because it looked like 5. So I was okay with that. And after it, and I felt bad because I had this 20-minute appeal, and I forgot that they had baptism. So it was already almost 10 o'clock, I think, because even the other pastors were waiting for me. Well, we had the baptism, and like what happened the other night, after the baptisms, the pastor makes an appeal. Come on, who wants to get into this water and be dipped and have their sins dead in the watery grave? And he's going on and on. By the time 3 more, I just need 3 more. His wife goes, 3 more, anybody, 3 more. And finally, at the end, 23 people came up to make the decision to be baptized. And that was just who I counted, because they were all dispersing, and I was trying to count how many there were. And I still couldn't believe that people were still just sitting in their seats, because I'm like this and I'm crying. And the reason why this is so amazing is that I've been praying. And what I prayed was for God to give me 50 baptisms. And I told one of the elders, I said, brother, I need you to pray for 50 baptisms. And his eyes got big. And then I kind of thought, is that too much? And he said, 50? And I said, well, yeah. I said, I don't serve a small God. I serve a great and mighty God.
Isn't that thrilling? Amen. We don't serve a small God, do we? A mighty God. A mighty God. Actually, she was just on a television program on Hope Channel sharing this experience. Yeah, this is down at the beach, and one of our young people, how old was he, 17? And he came, and he was one of the last time preachers. Somebody said they were 17 a while ago. Yes. He was 17 years old. He preached his first meeting. His uncle is from Dominican. His uncle left the church when he was a child. And so here, his uncle heard they were coming, so he came and became the translator for him. And when he's making the appeal, his uncle came down first. He was the translator. He said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, I want to be baptized." And so he was baptized here on the ocean. Jim Stevens, our president from the Texaco Conference, baptized him. And I baptized him. He had the worship service. As soon as he was baptized, his mother lives in New York City. And so he called his mama. And he said, "Mama, guess what? I was just baptized." And he could hear his mama crying in New York City on the cell phone. Isn't that thrilling? The young man, Daniel, he was so excited. He said, I used to be a preacher's kid, but now I'm a preacher.
I'm no longer a P kid, I'm a P.
Isn't that neat? That's Daniel, who was the preacher. Well, I'll take you just for a few minutes to Zambia, to Africa. I promise I'll do that. This is Victoria Falls, the largest falls in the world. Kids, can you see that? I'm going to show you the picture of an elephant here. He was really close and scared my wife. Kathy said, "Drive the car, drive the car." Zebra. It's thrilling. I want to tell you the story of Odessa. Garvin McNillis used to have the largest cement manufacturing business in the world. He lives up in Minnesota. He sold everything. He's converted his factory into making churches. Wow. So they send churches all around the world. A friend of ours just built this year 180 churches in Kenya. Now, we're down in Zambia. Pardon? One-day churches in Kenya. This is Odia. Odia for, since 1984, was it? 81. She's been praying for a church and a school in Victoria Falls. The Lord first gave them the land. Now, 81, and we're in 2011. How long is that? Huh? 30 years. 30 years. 30 years. Would you pray for 30 years? She used to say, she told Kathy, she said, I used to wake up in the middle of the night and I'd say, "Oh my dear Jesus, don't you hear me? Don't you hear me? We need land." And well, finally the city gave them land after about 10 years. And then another 20 years, she kept praying for a school. She had no idea how she would get a school. How's God going to get a school? And then Garvin McNillis in Minnesota got this thrilling idea that he could make churches and put them in a container and ship them over. And he said, "If I can make churches, I can make schools." And so we started making the school. This is the church there in Victoria Falls. We have there it is. Look at that. It's there now. It's in January, after 30 years of prayer. God is in the business. Remember, how many are on our side? More on our side than on theirs. God is in the business of turning Satan's curses into what? Blessings. Isn't that thrilling? Look at that. This is the church. Here is the preschool. This is the elementary school, and this is the secondary school. It's all there now in Victoria Falls. We have also had 2 schools over Livingston. Just happened in the last 2 years. We have about 100 churches in the area that have been built. We've had 100 evangelistic meetings. Just amazing. This is a place where this is Kathy. It's called the Hill Church. It used to be called the places where rocks were made because the people are so poor in Livingston, Zambia, by Victoria Falls. They break rocks to make gravel with a hammer. And a lady can make 1 wheelbarrow load full of rocks a day and earn $1. $1. A young man can maybe make $3 a day. Amazing. So poor. And now they have a beautiful, this is a church and they have a school. Just amazing, isn't it? That's where the places where rocks used to be made now is called the Hill Church. This is over in, we just came back a few days ago from Bulawayo, Zimbabwe, where we built 42 churches. We had 46 evangelistic meetings. She's from our office. This is my secretary, my administrative assistant.
From among yourselves, men will rise up speaking perverse, crooked things to draw away disciples after themselves.
Isn't that easy? It's all written out on the computer. If you can, is there anybody here that can read? If you can read, can you read? Would you raise your hand? If you can read, if you can read, can you raise your hand? Well, if you can read, you can preach. That's what she's doing. It's all on the computer. It's easy. It's done. Wow. This young man's doing the same thing.
When Satan failed to trap Jesus in temptation,
He looks down at his computer. It's all right there.
Jesus gave his life for us and was raised again. Satan then focused
Isn't that easy?
attention
Anybody could do that, couldn't you? Wow, right here. We're thinking, we're just talking that maybe we could have 10 or 20 meetings. And we can help you with the materials and things. You can do it in your home. We can do it on your television. You can do it with a video projector. You can do it with a DVD player. There are no excuses. Well, this is a church plant that we did, and a church that was built in school in honor of a friend of mine, Jerry Potzer, there also in Bulawayo. The exciting thing is, you know, Jerry Potzer was the president of the North Pacific Union when I was there. He got cancer. I got lung cancer right after he got cancer. He died. I'm alive, and I'm so thankful that I am. But Sue, we all wonder, why wasn't Jerry healed too? I did. I had lung cancer 5 years ago. And I'm so thankful I'm alive and here today to share that with you. You see, God can turn the curses into blessings. But I asked Sue, this is his wife. Jerry died 3 years ago of cancer. And I asked, how do you deal with this? How do you feel about coming? See, she preached a series of evangelistic meetings in a church that was dedicated to him, not far from where he preached his first evangelistic series 13 years ago. And I said to her, Sue, how is it that you can preach where Jerry preached his first meetings 13 years ago? And she said, well, she said, I quote the text in Genesis chapter 20 when Joseph is talking to his brothers, remember? And they come and he said, you meant it for evil, but Exodus 50, Genesis 50:20, yeah. That's it, Genesis 50:20. He said to his brothers, you meant it for evil, God meant it for good. And she said, we turn around and say, Satan meant Jerry's death for evil, but God meant it for good. And she said, before I wouldn't preach. But now that Jerry's gone, I have to preach. And every time I preach, it's like I'm kicking Satan in the stomach. You see, God is in the business of turning the devil's curses into blessings, isn't he? That's what he does. That's what he does. This is a young lady from, do you know her? Any of you know her? Yeah? She was one of our preachers here for Houston for Christ. She's done 5 evangelistic meetings. It just happened a couple of years ago. She would do all kinds of bad things that a young lady shouldn't be doing. She's only 23 years old, and for years and years and years, she would go to nightclubs here in Houston. Here, in Houston. Julia Hernandez. And something happened in her life that turned her into an evangelist. When she was not a Seventh-day Adventist, when she was not baptized, when she was not even a Christian, she started going to church for 2 weeks. 2 weeks. And Susanna Facundo, the one you saw, my administrative assistant, my secretary, invited her, didn't know that she wasn't an Adventist, and invited her to go and preach in Veracruz. We were on the bus. She said, do you want to preach? She thought she was an Adventist, and she said, sure. Not being an Adventist, going to church for 2 weeks, coming out of the nightclub life, not even knowing who James was, or Peter, or John. She never read the Bible. And here she's preaching a full evangelistic meeting, all of a sudden in Veracruz, Mexico, and her whole life has changed. And I want you to hear Julia tell the story.
I was teaching myself, and I was like, this is the only truth. And what am I waiting for?
Wow.
I didn't give up.
Now, so this is the first time you preached.
Exactly. That's
And
right.
you've never been baptized.
Never been baptized.
Why would you go on a mission trip? What happened in your life?
I didn't go to church. I was really into the world out there. I would go to clubs. I would do drugs. My life was a complete disaster. I was empty inside, like something was missing. And I would come every night and cry and say, I don't like my life this way. And I would get on my knees and say, I need you to change something in me. That's my sister Kelly.
Kelly was praying for you. How long did she pray?
For 5 years.
She never gave up, huh?
She never gave up. And she was the one that told me, you need to get on your knees.
Wow.
Because there is someone waiting for you.
Yeah.
And it was hard for me because I feel like I didn't deserve that. So I got on my knees, I cried for a few days,
Wow.
and it just like something just relieved me from everything.
They're getting ready to go and preach in Veracruz. They're working with their computer to share him sermons.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
So I said, you know what, I can go with you guys and help you guys with the slideshow. I can show you guys how to work.
Now, you've been going to church only 2 months.
No, for 2 weeks.
2 weeks you was going to church.
For 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
So that day, they said, well, you know what, this is how much it's gonna be. So I checked my checking account, and that's exactly the money I had. My passport was expired since 2004.
Wow.
And whenever I went to get my passport, they had told me that the earliest they could give me the passport was in 3 days.
Uh-huh.
And we needed to leave that same day at 4 o'clock. That day, I went over there, and the agent that helped me out with my passport, she read the letter saying that I was going to a missionary trip.
Uh-huh.
That on Wednesday, which was the next day. But it was, we really needed to leave that day, that same day. So she was like, so you guys leaving tomorrow? And I was like, yeah. So she was like, it's going to be impossible for you to get your passport in less than 3 days. And then she read Seventh Adventist. She was like, I'm a Seventh Adventist too. So she was like, hold on a minute. She went to go talk to her supervisor. Her supervisor approved for my passport to be ready by 2:30 that day. And we left that day at 7 o'clock from Houston. We were going in the bus, and I'm practicing the sermons. She comes up to me and she's like, oh, are you studying the sermons? Are you preaching?
Okay.
And I said, no. She asked me, you want to preach? And I said, yes. Yeah. And I said, oh yeah. And I didn't even know anything about the Bible. How am I going to stand up there and preach?
You were going to church 2 weeks, you're not baptized, and they've asked you to preach.
I couldn't believe that I said yes. I don't even know why I said yes. That's at that moment. But getting over there, they told me they assigned a church for everybody.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be in charge for like a whole week and a half to give to preach every night by myself.
Right.
And it's like, how am I gonna do it? They told me, you have to pray and ask God for Him to give you the strength, for Him to give you, for Him to be with you with the Holy Spirit the whole time, so He can be the one talking, not you. On one of the sermons, it was about baptism.
Yes.
That's whenever, after finishing the sermon, I told them that I wanted to share my testimony with them. These people, they identify with me.
Sure.
And they saw an example in me, and everything that I would, in all the sermons, I would share my personal experience and how God worked on me.
Right.
And that was just touching people.
Sure.
And those two guys that would come drunk, they decided to get baptized. And when I told them that I wasn't baptized first, and that just like them, I was one of the person that I was the one preaching the word, but at the same time, I was learning from it. And I said, there's so much water out there, nobody can stop us from baptizing.
So how many were baptized? How many decisions? 7 were baptized from your church.
7.
And when you made that appeal to be baptized like you.
Yes, when I started the church, I only had 30 members. And right now, when I left, there was 80 members.
80 members. 30
If God can use an 11-year-old that just preached 2 weeks ago in Bulawell, Zimbabwe, an 84-year-old that just preached, if God can use Julie Hernandez, He can use you, and you, and you, and you, and you, and you. He can use you here, right here in Houston. We're going to be back in March. If it all works out, we'll organize 20 meetings. We'll help you. If you want a little pre-experience, we're going to Belize in February, the end of February. You're welcome to go. We're going to the Philippines, but that's for pastors' wives, and that's going to be in April. So pastors' wives can go with us in April to the Philippines. But if you want the thrill of your life, preach a series of meetings right here in Houston. Or go with us to Belize. We'll take you there too. Remember, God is in the business of what? Of turning Satan's curses into blessings. Right? How many here are willing to do anything that God asks you to do? Anything God asks you to do. Are you willing? Yes? Yes? How many are willing to do anything God asks you to do anytime, anywhere? Would you stand if you, okay, if you just stand. Those of you who are willing to do anything God asks you to do anytime, can you say no to God? Of course not. If you're willing to do anything God asks you to do anytime, anywhere, just stand. Just stand. I want to pray for you. This is God asking, not Dr. McKee. This is God. If you're willing to do anything God asks you to do anytime, anywhere, just stand right now. Father in heaven, I want to thank you so much for these commitments. Lord, there's so many people who need to know about Jesus. And I pray that as we commit to doing what you ask us to do, make it clear to us, Lord. We want to walk in Jesus' footsteps. We want this work to be finished so we can get off this old ball and bud and go home. I thank you in Christ's name.